about General Braddock during the French and Indian War. Supposedly, he had some gold. In 1755, war raged across the frontier, and the English colonies were locked in a death grip with the French and their Indian allies. In February of 1755, the English General Edward Braddock landed at the port of Alexandria, Virginia, with 1,000 British regulars. An additional 700 militia were brought on, and George Washington was added to Braddock's own military family. All this together, Braddock's mission was a very simple one: to march on the French fort Duquesne, which is in present-day Pittsburgh, and destroy the main French army presently there in what was considered to be British North America. Now, Braddock, trained in the traditional parade ground tactics of Europe, anticipated a quick and glorious little campaign. He regarded the militia's fear of the Indians as highly exaggerated. In fact, Braddock's own opinion of the militia was extremely low. And his troubles almost started immediately. He could never get used to the terrain and distances of America. Heavy rains from April to June made the land between Alexandria and the fur trading town of Winchester in the Shenandoah Valley a sea of mud. And by June, Braddock had collected an army of 2,500 men, but was still bottled up in Alexandria. And so he began building a road westward, the pace agonizingly slow. The heat and mud slowed the army at every step. Especially troublesome was the artillery that Braddock had brought from England. To be specific, the artillery was 4 howitzer, 4 12-pounders, and 4 6-pounders. In total, 12 guns? Could be difficult. By the 9th day of the march, Braddock's army had only traveled 27 miles to the village of Newgate, which is present-day Centerville, and was renamed that in 1798. Here, he turned northward, but the cannons and wagons became hopelessly mired in mud and clay. In an act of desperation, Braddock ordered some of the artillery to be buried. Taking aside a small group of soldiers, he buried 2 of the brass 6-pounders, each weighing 1,500 pounds. The cannons were buried pointing skyward. Dismissing all but a few trusted officers, Braddock then poured $30,000 worth in gold coins, money to be used to pay the troops, into the open ends of the cannons. The mouths of the cannons were then sealed with wooden plugs. The general carefully noted the location of the treasure, 50 paces east of a spring where the road runs north and south. The road of which he spoke is now called Braddock Road, where the road runs north to intersect US 29 and 211 in Centerville. Braddock would march on to disaster in western Pennsylvania. Ambushed in the thick forest, the red-coated British were easy targets for the concealed French and Indians. The few trusted officers who had witnessed the burying of the treasure were killed in battle. Braddock himself had 4 horses shot from underneath him. And finally, with General Braddock mortally wounded, the army managed to retreat, and Braddock would die later that night, on July the 13th. His last words, "Who would have thought it?" Now, General Braddock's papers were sent to England, and years later an archivist found the account of the buried gold located in Virginia. A special committee was dispatched to search for the gold, but returned to England empty-handed. So to this day, 2 brass cannons filled with gold lie beneath the soil of Virginia.